Hey yo, what is up everybody? My name is Chandler Molyneux and welcome to the Act First Show where we talk about personal development and sales. This is the third and final video of a three-part video series where I break down the exact same sales script that helped me do over 8 figures in online coaching sales. Now, in this third and final video, we're going to be talking about probably everybody's favorite part, which is the pitch section and objection handling section of the sales script. Like last time, I have a lot of visual representations that I want to show you guys. So in 3, 2, 1. If you guys remember from the last video where we broke down the presentation, you probably remember this presentation. Now, for the pitch, we actually are going to continue to use the presentation leading up to actually pitching your program. Okay, so the the pitch picks up where the presentation ends. All right, so the presentation ends with the recap slide. All right, then the very next slide, you're going to be going over your guarantee. All right, this is extremely important for the pitch. All right, this is my opinion. Other people have different opinions on how to use the guarantee. My opinion is if you show the guarantee in the presentation prior to the pitch, it continues to build up the value in the prospect's mind. All right, the other side, and this is totally fine if this is your side, is people will not show the guarantee in the presentation and they will save the guarantee as a back pocket option in objection handling. The reason I don't like that is because at that point, if we have to use it in objection handling, there's already a part in the prospect's mind where they're 1 foot out the door. But if we can build the value, stack the value prior to pitching the price, I think it increases the likelihood that we do not get an objection, right? And that's the big thing, right? A lot of people talk about objection handling, objection handling, objection handling. Not a lot of sales coaches talk about how to eliminate or prevent objections from happening. And one of those ways is to build and stack the value prior to the pitch. And that's exactly what we do here, right? So we go over the guarantee, right? We go over the promise, and I like to go over the stipulations as well, just to be transparent. The more transparent that we could be on the sales call, the more trust that the prospect's going to have with you as well. All right. So after that, I will go over the same day bonuses. Okay. So once again, the purpose of the same day bonuses is to stack the value prior to pitching the price. Also, it adds a little bit of urgency, especially if your same day bonuses are good, right? Just quick context, a bonus is something extra that they can get. And when it's a same day bonus, they can only get that bonus if they sign on that day, which provides a little bit of urgency to move forward on that day, right? So we're continuing to stack value. Now we're adding urgency. All right, the next thing that we do is we'll go over testimonials. This is all a part of stacking that value prior to pitch, right? The guarantee, the bonuses, now the testimonials, right? So we'll showcase testimonials. More specifically, we'll showcase testimonials in a story written format, meaning we'll tell the story of the client. Where were they before? What challenges did they have? How do we help them? Where are they at now? That's more or less the story framework. All right, we even do something that I've never seen any other coaching companies do. We'll actually go over our student averages. So we do a really good job of tracking data, and we defined, what are the data points that we want to track from our clients, like what would be compelling. And for us, it was how long did it take for our clients to sign their first client? What were they making a month on average? What did they make in the first 45 days? How many clients did they sign? And what did they grade the program? And we tracked those averages, and we were able to communicate those averages on sales calls. Okay, now we've properly stacked to the value. That's the point of the pitch section. Okay, now we are going to actually pitch the program. So a couple of very important things that you want to make sure you do prior to pitching the price. All right. At this point, I hit the pause button. So what I'll say on the sales calls, I'll say, great, we're about to get into everyone's favorite part, but I just have a couple of quick questions for you before we do. Is that cool with you? They say yes. All right. Then I say, great. Do you believe that this program, XYZ program, can help you reach your goal? Get a yes there. Then I say, awesome. And do you believe in yourself? Like, do you believe that you're going to follow through, show up, and put in the work? Get a yes there. Okay. Now we're starting to get some yeses prior to the ultimate yes that we want. Now, the last question here is my favorite. It's been a minute at this point since we've talked about their why, right? We just did a whole discovery that took 20 minutes. We just did a whole presentation that took 20 minutes. That's 40 minutes of time is the last time that we brought up their why, right? So we got to reconnect them to that prior to the most important decision, which is, are they going to say yes or are they going to say no? So I'll say, do you believe in the program? Do you believe in yourself? And then I'll say, remind me again, what's the biggest reason that you want this goal to happen? What's your why? And I'll say it just like that. I won't fill in the blanks. I'll pretend like I don't remember, even though I do, and I'll have them say it again. And it's very powerful for them to say it opposed to you to say it and them just to respond back yes. We want them to feel their words. We want them to feel the emotional connection and the reason why they want to do this. Okay, so we've properly primed them. We've stacked the value. We got them re-engaged with their why. We got them to say yes a couple times, confirming they believe in the program, confirming they believe in themselves. Now it is officially time to pitch price. Okay, now if you have a multi-length program, meaning you have a 3-month option, a 6-month option, and 12-month option, I will ask them, awesome, great. So just so you know, we have a 6-month option and a 12-month option. Personally, I think it's best if you do the 12-month option. Here are the reasons why, blank, blank, blank. But what do you think is best? What length of term do you want to hear? Reason I do that is I like to call this customizable closing. All right. When they feel like they are a part of the decision, it's much harder for them to say no to something that they created. Right. So if they tell you, I want to do 6 months, right? It's their decision opposed to you saying, hey, we're going to do 6 months. And whenever it's somebody's decision, they are more apt to want to follow through with something that they created. Okay. So then once they've said, hey, I'm going to do 12 months, I'm going to do 6 months, I'm going to do 3 months, it's very important that we pitch the price in this way. So we're going to say, amazing. In order for you to do XYZ program for the next 12 months, it's $5,000 on a payment plan or whatever the price is. I'm just using this as an example. It's $5,000 on a payment plan and $4,000 if you pay in full. What's best for you? Payment plan or pay in full? Here's what I did, right? It seems simple, but there's a science behind this, okay? So the most important part is saying payment plan or pay in full, what's best for you? Because there's a sales adage out there, right, that says the first person to speak loses. And I think that's complete and utter bullshit, right? I think that's very awkward. If I just said, hey, the price is $5,000, and then just sat there like a mute, I think that's extremely uncomfortable and very awkward. And even if that is true, right? Even if it is true that the first person to speak loses, then why don't you ask a question so they're the first person to speak, right? So that's why I say this in an A-B format, not an open-ended format. I don't say, hey, it's 5,000 on a payment plan, 4,000 pay in full. What's best for you? That's open-ended, which means that they can give you any response. No, I say an A-B format, payment plan or pay in full, which increases the likelihood that they are going to say one or the other and not an objection, right? 5,000 payment plan, 4,000 pay in full. What's best for you? Payment plan or pay in full? Right now it's A, B. Now they have to choose. And when they choose, right, then we could take them down that path. All right, that's everything you need to know for the pitch section. Now we're going to move over to a different document and we're going to go over objection handling. We're going to be covering, I need to think about it. We're going to be covering the spouse objection. We're going to be covering, I can't afford it. We're going to be covering time delay. So time delay is basically, you know what, I'll do this next month, or I'll do this in 3 months from now. And then we'll be covering the this or that objection, which can be used for, let's see, I believe, yes, think about it, and finances it could be used for. All right, let's go ahead and break it down. So I need to think about it. Hopefully at this point, you guys know the very first thing we want to do is agree with them, right? You have to be agreeable, right? The second that they think that you're on the other side of the table and they perceive this as a fight rather than working together to solve a problem, you're done. You're toast. You're not going to be able to close them. You always have to put yourself on the same side of the table, right? I'm holding your hand. I'm walking you through the fire because I'm the leader and I'm here to solve this problem with you, right? Not for myself, but with you. Okay, so that's why we agree. All right, so the rule of every objection, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to agree with them. Hey, totally agree that you need to think about it. Honestly, I would be weirded out if you didn't need to think about it, right? You can put a little joke in there as well. All right, with I need to think about it, it's going to be, okay, cool. Is it okay if I ask you a couple of questions? They say yes. And then from there, you're going to say, sweet. So anytime somebody says that they need to think about it, it's really just four things that they have to think about. Is it okay if I take you through that? They say yes. And here are the four things. So the first thing is going to be, all right, so the first thing you would have to think about is, do you believe that this program can help you reach your goal? And then insert and actually say what their goal is. Okay. You're going to get them to answer yes or no. All right. I'm going to go back and tell you what to do if they say no to any of these, but let's just get through them first. All right. So let's assume they say yes. The next one is awesome. Cool. So the next thing you would have to consider is, do you have the time to follow through on this? Like, do you believe that you could truly follow through on this? Get them to answer yes or no. All right. Let's assume they said yes. All right, the third thing you would have to consider is, do you believe that you could be successful? Like, do you believe in yourself that you could lose these 30 pounds, that you can, make $10,000 a month as an entrepreneur, right? Getting them to say yes or no there. All right, the last thing that you would have to think about is, do you believe that you can afford this program? At the end of the day, do you believe that you can afford it? And you want to get a yes, no there. All right, so let's assume, I'm going to go back now. Let's assume with all those, they said yes to all four. All right. Well, let's go back and I want to show you what to do if they say no to any of those four. All right. So the first one here is their belief in the program. All right. So if they say that they don't believe in the program, very simply, we want to figure out what's missing. So we want to say, hey, look, I really appreciate your honesty there. What do you feel like's missing? Like, what were you hoping to see, or what were you hoping to have in the program that would make you more successful? 9 times out of 10, this is a misunderstanding, or they didn't pick up the information on what you were saying. All right. So let's say they say, oh man, I just wish there was more accountability. Hey, no worries at all. What were you hoping for more accountability? Oh man, I just would like the ability to shoot you a text. Hey, no worries. I'm not sure if you missed this, but let me take you back to it. Bing, bong, boom, take you back to the slides. All right, look, right here, you actually have 24/5 access. So what that means is you could reach out to me at any point with a guaranteed response time of 24 hours, Monday through Friday, 5 days a week. Do you feel like that solves your problem? Do you feel like that would suffice? Oh yeah, sorry, I didn't even see that part. No worries, man. Right? 9 times out of 10, it's that. 9 times out of 10, it's a misunderstanding there. All right. If they truly don't believe in the program and they don't think, and you're not willing to accommodate whatever they're looking for, like let's say that they want, 2 calls with you a week, and you're just like, yeah, we don't offer that, and I'm not willing to accommodate for that, then that's fine. It's not going to be a good fit for everybody, right? And that's okay. All right. But if it is a misunderstanding, at least we cleared it up. All right. Now, the second one here, if they don't believe that they can actually follow through, they don't have the time for this. All right. It's very simple. This one's my favorite. I'll say, hey, totally get if you're busy, totally get if you have other obligations. Just want to confirm, what happens if we don't solve this obligation? Meaning, if you don't lose these 30 to 50 pounds, what does life look like? Right? Get them back in that pain, right? Get them back in that pain. Say, all right, cool. So it sounds like to me, we have no other choice but to solve this. Is that right? Yeah, yes, that's true. But the time, hey, that's okay. We're going to talk about that in just a second. I just want to make sure this is still important to you. Yes, it's still important to me. All right, no worries. So check this out. So we actually did the math for this exact reason, because I knew people would ask me this question. So with all in, right, the check-ins, XYZ, whatever your program entails, it's only going to take 2 hours a week to be an active, like high contributing member of this program. Do you feel like you have 2 hours a week to give to be able to solve this problem? And I would repeat the problem, to lose these 30 pounds. Oh yeah, 2 hours. I could definitely do that. All right, no worries. Right. So it's just working through that concern. I do highly, highly recommend that you do work out the math and just have a rough estimate of per week how much time your program takes to be successful. Okay, the third one is probably like, this one requires the highest level of skill to solve. And this is going to be fear, right? This is going to be like, I don't believe in myself, right? I don't think I could be successful. I have imposter syndrome, whatever it is. All right. So what we want to do here is we want to bring up their why, right? So I would say, hey, look, once again, I would be a little scared if you weren't scared. All right. If you were 100% certain, I would be like, what's wrong with this guy? Is he crazy? Right. I would make them laugh a little bit. I'd say, cool. Is it cool if we talk through this? Yeah, no, of course. All right. So Remind me again, what's the biggest reason you're on this call? Well, Chad, I want to lose 30 pounds so I could be a better father. All right, cool. And that's important to you, right? Like we have to get that solved. Is that fair to say? Yeah, no, 100%. Okay, so if it's that important to you, and actually real quick before we get into that, talk to me again. What happens if we don't solve this problem? Well, my kids would have a bad example, blah, blah, blah. All right, cool. So like I said, high urgency, we got to get this solved. Do you think something as silly as imposter syndrome, something as silly as fear and doubt, do you think that should let you hold that? Do you think that should hold you back from becoming the best version of yourself, the best father that you could be for your kids? No, Chad, I don't. Then what are we doing? What are we waiting for? Let's commit to this, right? So basically, what you're trying to do is you're juxtaposing that something as small and little as fear is what's holding them back from achieving the best version of themselves in XYZ, right? You're trying to create that comparison there, right? So once again, the formula here is bring up the why, talk about what happens if they don't accomplish this, and then you're going to say, are you going to let something as silly as blank, whatever they told you it was, hold you back from reaching your goal once and for all? They're going to say no, and then you're going to ask for the commitment. Now, a couple other things you can do here. I got a long list. Another one is called the 80-year-old rocking chair, right? So basically what that is you're just going to say, hey, do you mind if I challenge you really quick? No, that's fine, Chad. All right, sweet. So I want you to imagine in your head, you're 80 years old, you're in a rocking chair, you're reflecting back on your life. What would that version of yourself tell you to do in this moment? Right? That version of myself, Chad, would tell me that I need to take action. Okay, cool. So are we going to make that person happy today? Or are we going to make that person unhappy today? Because here's the thing, time's going to go by, right? Time's going to go by, right? The only variable that's different here is your choice in this moment. Are you going to choose to do this? Or are you going to choose not to do this? Because that choice is going to come up again at the end of your life, and you're going to reflect back, and you're either going to be proud of yourself or you're going to have regret. So what do you say? We making the 80-year-old version of you happy today? They say yes, and then you go for the close and you commit. All right, now the other one you could do is 12 months if you do, 12 months if you don't. All right, so they say, I'm just not sure. I'm a little bit fearful. I would say, hey, no worries at all. Cool if I challenge you? They say yes. And I'd say, awesome. All right, so let's play a little game here. 12 months from now, let's say you don't take action. 12 months from now, you're in the exact same position that you're in. What does life look like? What else? Tell me more. What else? Tell me more. Oh, that's it, Chad. Right? So get them to max out what life would look like, right? You want them to go through all the bad things, all the things they would feel, right? So not only what life would look like, but how would you feel 12 months from now if you didn't take action on this, right? Pour out all the negative. Then you're going to say, okay, cool. Let's flip this. 12 months from now, you've lost the 30 pounds, right? You're a better father for your kids. You're able to play basketball, a game of basketball with them without getting out of breath. What does life look like then? Tell me more. How are you feeling in that moment? All right, so here's my question for you. Are you willing to settle for anything less than the best version that you just described to me? No, Chad, I'm not willing to. Great. Then are we committing to this? And you go for the close. All right. So those are 3 ways that you can solve the fear one there. All right. Now, the last one here is I don't believe that I can afford it, right? So I would just say, okay, cool. So we believe in the program. You believe you can follow through. You believe in your own ability that you can accomplish this. It's just the finances. Is that right? Okay, cool. So are you willing to get resourceful so that we can come up with a payment plan that's fair for you, but also fair for us? Ultimately, so we can help you accomplish XYZ, which would be whatever their why is. They'll say, yes, I'm willing to get resourceful. And then at that point, right, we just try to find the best payment plan for them, right? So we reconfirm the why. We ask for the resourcefulness, and then we go through the next option on payment plans there. All right, so that's how to handle I need to think about it. Okay, the next one here is going to be spouse. Probably the most finicky, okay? Probably the most finicky, probably the most difficult objection. There's a lot of nuances to this, and I really have one specific way that has worked for, actually, sorry, I'll say I've had 2 specific ways that have worked for me consistently, one of which is probably one that you're not expecting me to say. All right, so let's go ahead and break it down with the spouse objection. Okay, so they say they need to talk to their spouse, right? What's the first rule of objection handling? We're going to agree. So I would say, hey, totally get you need to talk to your spouse. I'm not in the business of divorce here, so I get it. Cool. If I ask you a couple of questions though, they'll say yes. All right, the first question you want to ask is tell me a little bit more about their involvement in this process. Like what kind of conversations have you had with them already, right? So now we're prying. We're trying to get information. We're trying to see, how involved has this individual been already. All right. Question two, have you guys had conversations about this goal and how it can improve your life together, right? So how it can improve the marriage, not just how it can improve you, but how it can improve the marriage, right? So we're asking another question. We're trying to do some fact finding. All right. Question number three, have you guys talked about your struggles? Have you talked about your challenges? And then lastly, have you guys discussed mentorship, right? So you're trying to figure out, more or less where are they at as a couple in making this decision. Okay, now a couple of things here. Going back to question one, if they say that they have not involved this individual, I want to know why, right? So I want to say, why haven't you gotten them involved? Now, one of two things, right? They either have a very terrible marriage, right? Which that makes things a little bit more sticky, or they haven't told their significant other because they don't have to tell their significant other. They can make a choice on their own, right? And in that case, we can isolate the spouse altogether. It's not really a spouse objection, it's something else. And we can go deeper and figure out maybe there's some fear there and they're just using the spouse as a cover. All right. Now, after question two, have you guys had conversations about how this can improve your marriage? If that goes really well and they say, yeah, we have this, that, and the other thing, right? I may try to go for the close there. And this, like I said, the reason why the spouse objection is so finicky is it really comes down to like a gut feeling. Like, do I feel I can close this person or do I not feel I can close this person? Another gut feeling is, do I feel that they're using this as a front and there's really something more here? Or do I actually believe that it is a spouse objection? And we'll get into that more in a second. But if after question two, they say that they, have had conversations and they do think this can significantly improve their marriage, I may try to go for the close here, right? And I might say like, wow, that's amazing. And I'll repeat what they said. I love to hear that, if you lost 50 pounds, it would even improve your marriage. Do you believe that you could be successful at this? Like if you did our program, do you believe you could be successful at this? And yes, Chad, I do. And does your spouse trust your judgment? And they'll say yes there. And I'll say, 12 months from now, if you achieve this goal, would he or she be upset if you committed today? If they say no, then I would say, great, then let's do this, right? So that's one way that you can close the spouse objection here. Now, the path that has been most successful for me is in that moment, asking them to either call them or chat with them. Okay. So we go through the whole entire thing, right? We ask the 4 questions. I have a good understanding of where they're at. And I'll pretty much say this. I'll say, hey, look, once again, I want to really respect that you want to talk to your spouse. I'm actually married as well. Why don't we do this? I've done this for tons of other people before, right? Don't worry about me. I have some admin work that can keep me busy, but why don't you put yourself on mute? You could turn your camera off to respect your privacy, and you can give them a quick call if they're home. You guys can have a conversation there. Like I said, don't worry about me. I have other stuff that can keep me busy. After your guys' conversation, you could pop back on. If it's a yes, then we can go from there. And if it's a no, no worries at all. We could chat about next steps. Does that sound fair? Get them to say yes, and then they go ahead, talk to the spouse, and then they come back and it's either a yes or a no. That's the one that's worked best for me, is actually giving them the respect of talking to that person, but not doing it in the way of like, oh, now we need a follow-up call, just handling it right then and there. Okay, now, what was I going to say here? Oh, yes. All right. So this is very nuanced, and this comes from a lot of experience. Sometimes I will schedule a follow-up call. All right. And this is all a gut feel. And this comes from taking a ton of sales calls. Sometimes their spouse objection is legitimate. Sometimes they will not move forward until they talk to their spouse. And if you continue to push and push and push, there's a high probability that you may push them away because you're not respecting the boundaries of their marriage. And that's important, highly important, right? So there are times where I'll say, hey, you know what? I'm married as well. I can tell you're, being legit here. Why don't we schedule a follow-up call? I'll respect, you and your marriage, and we can chat in a day or two. And then I'll say, what information would your spouse need? And then I'll provide that information. I don't do this every single time. If you do this every single time, you're probably not going to close any of these deals. But I can tell you right now that there are times that I've done that, and the person does respect that highly, and it actually works in my benefit, and I end up closing the deal because I respected them. All right, but I've maybe dished this out a couple of times, and like I said, I probably have a 50% success rate on it, but I've only dished it out a couple of times. All right, but the one that's really worked for me is getting them to talk to their spouse in that moment. Okay, now I want to give you one other note here. All right, if they bring up multiple objections outside of the spouse, it's probably not the spouse. So if they're like, oh yeah, I got to talk to my spouse. Oh, I really got to think about it. Oh, it's kind of too much money. And they're just throwing out all these different objections. It's probably not the spouse objection. And what you want to do there is you want to come back to the same 4 questions for I need to think about it. I would say, hey, look, I know this is a high pressure situation. I know you may feel a little bit uncomfortable right now. I can promise you it's not as high stakes as you think, right? Like it's all going to be okay. Is it cool if I ask you some questions so we can come to a solution here? And then I'll come back to the 4 questions and I need to think about it. And I'll try to pinpoint what that objection is so I can solve that specific problem. All right. So that's going to be spouse objection. All right, the next one here is going to be I can't afford it. All right, so I can't afford it is very simple. If they give me this, I'm happy. I'm a happy camper. All right, so what I'm trying to do here is reconfirm the program. So I'll say, hey, look, totally get it if you can't afford it. Cool if I ask you a couple of questions. I'll say, awesome. You believe, XYZ program can help you solve XYZ result. Is that right? They'll say yes. I'll say, is that right, to try to get the yes. And then from there, I'll say, okay, cool. And you believe you can follow through on this, right? Like meaning the time. And then I'll say, cool. And you believe in your own ability to be successful. Like you believe you can lose these 30 pounds. Yes, I do. And then I'll reconfirm that they still need a solution to the why. So then I'll say, okay, and you still need to solve XYZ, which is the why. Is that right? Trying to, bring up the why again. They say yes. And they'll say, okay, cool. So it's just the finances then. And they say yes. And the reason I asked all those questions before is I'm trying to fish out and see if it's anything but the finances. And then if they confirm that it is just the finances, I'll ask them the resourcefulness question. So I'll say, awesome, cool. So if it's just the finances, and if you still need to find a solution to this problem, are you open to getting resourceful so we can come up with a payment plan that's fair for you, but also fair for us? And then that's when we go into the options there. Now, the reason I love that question so much, bringing back up something I said earlier, is it puts us on the same side of the table, right? Are you open to coming up with a payment plan that's fair to you, but fair to us? Now we're working together as a team. All right. Now, the next one here is going to be the time delay. So this is going to be, now is not the right time. I got to do this in the future. I'm looking over at the clock here because I actually have a dinner coming up. So let's get through this. I got a couple more. All right. Time delay. So first rule, we want to agree with them. All right. Then we want to ask them if it's okay if we could take them through a quick exercise. Hey, totally get if next month is better for you. Is it okay if I ask you a couple questions though? And then is it okay if I take you through a quick exercise? They say yes. And I say, all right, what does life look like if you delay this? Like paint that picture for me. What else? What else? What else? Right? So trying to paint out all the negatives that come with delaying this. Then we say, okay, let's flip the script here. What does life look like if you commit to this? If you commit to this and you start taking action today, what else? What else? What else? And then just like we do with the 12 months if you do, 12 months if you don't, we'll say, are you willing to settle for anything less than that? They say no. And then I say, great, then let's commit. Let's make this happen. Okay, so that's time delay. All right, last one here is the this or that. All right, so this or that is trying to create a visual like a fork in the road. All right, so first thing here, we want to acknowledge their objection. All right, you can use this one if it's I need to think about it or if it's finances. All right, so we say, hey, Totally get if you need to think about it. Is it okay if I challenge you though? So now we're asking for permission to challenge them. All right, now what we want to do is we want to paint a vision of the fork in the road and that how they only have two paths here, right? The path of committing, which is their new vision, right? And then the path of failure, okay? You could, if doing, I just want to read this here. If doing guided vision, don't paint the vision for them. Ask them what the end of these two paths look like, and then ask them. Okay, all right, sorry. I just wanted to read my note there. All right, so what that would look like if I was playing that out is I would say, hey, totally get if you need to think about it. Is it okay if I challenge you though? And they say yes. And I say, all right, Steve, well, the way I see it, you really only have two paths. So I actually want you to think about this in your mind's eye. Imagine a fork in the road. All right. On one path, you have commitment. All right. And on the other path, we have non-commitment. Now, if you choose not to commit, here's what I envision is going to happen. Right. And then I paint out all the negatives of what's going to happen. All right, on the other side of that, though, Steve, the good thing is we don't have to go down that path. On the other side of that, though, Steve, we have commitment. And here's what life could look like if you choose to commit, right? And go through all of those things and then bring it back to the fork in the road, right? So you took them down both roads, but bring them back to the fork in the road. And then I would say, all right, well, I've taken you down both paths, right? You've seen what it looks like to turn left. You've seen what it looks like to turn right. Let's go back to that fork in the road, Steve. What decision are we going to make? Are we going to head towards commitment, or are we going to head down the other path there? Right. And I'm challenging them. All right. So that's one way that you could do it there. All right, y'all, we have officially come to the end of our 3-part series of stealing my 8-figure online coaching sales script. If you guys enjoyed this, you guys know what to do. Make sure you subscribe. If you have any additional questions on the sales script, whether it's the discovery section, the presentation, the pitch, or objection handling, drop them below. If there's any other topics that you'd like me to cover, you can also drop those below as well. But I will see you in the next one. Thank you guys. Peace out.